Hi, welcome to the next section. Today we are going to deal with colors in CSS. We will also take care of the color units we use in CSS. We will learn about many color-related properties in CSS as well. I want you to know that we deal with colors from a technical point of view. We learn how to deal with them and implement them on websites. We don't learn what color is worth using. This is also important, but this is more responsibility of a graphic designer, not web developer. If you want to be a freelancer to design and develop websites from scratch, you should also train yourself in graphical design. As a developer, you usually get a website design prepared by a graphic designer, and you have to be able to implement it. This is what we are going to do. In CSS, we have the color property. It refers to the font color on our websites. The color property can take different values. The first way to define a color is to give it a name recognized by the CSS language as a value. CSS recognizes nearly 200 such names. More often, however, we use the RGB function as a color value or use the hexadecimal system. We use the RGB function by entering the phrase RGB as the value and opening the round brackets. In those brackets, we must provide three values separated by a comma. RGB refers to the three basic colors: red, green, and blue. And in the brackets, we specify the intensity of each of these three colors to achieve the desired color effect. We use the RGB function more often because it offers many more possibilities. With this method, we can get more than 16 million colors. Where did such a large number come from? Because in the RGB function, each of the three primary colors can get a numerical value from 0 to 255, which gives us 256 possibilities. Due to the fact that we have three basic colors, each of them can take 256 different values. 256 times 256 times 256. Lots of possible colors to choose from, isn't it? Another way of writing the color value is the hexadecimal system. It offers the same possibilities as the RGB function. However, it requires the knowledge of what the hexadecimal system is in order to be able to use such a notation. I'll tell us more about the hexadecimal system in this video. For now, know that we use 16 numbers to write in this system, but we only use the digits from 0 to 9. And for the numbers from 10 to 15, we use the letters of the alphabet from an A to an F. In the RGB function, we can also use the percentages instead of the numerical values from 0 to 255. When 0% means 0 and 100% means 255. In the second example, we can see the RGBA function. The difference is that it takes the fourth value in the brackets, which is transparency. In the last example on this slide, you may notice short hexadecimal notation, also used very often. If we only see 3 characters in a hexadecimal notation, it means that in the original notation, each character appears twice. But what is the process of creating colors on our website anyway? Your monitor can display over 16 million colors. The full HD monitor has 1920 times 1080 pixels. Each pixel has 3 tiny dots called phosphors inside it: red, green, and blue. Depending on the intensity with which a certain phosphor is glowing or not, we get the desired color. If all the phosphors glow with the full power, we get the white color. If all of them do not glow at all, we get the black color. If only one phosphor glows with the full power and the rest do not glow at all, we get the color of this particular phosphor: red, green, or blue. Like I said before, the black color is formed when all the phosphors do not glow at all. This color can be set in CSS using the name of black. We can also use the RGB function with the values 0 or 0% for each basic color. The point is simply to keep these pixels from glowing. In the hexadecimal system, this color can be written as 6 zeros, or in the short version as 3 zeros. we will get the white color when all the phosphors will shine at their full power. We get this color when we enter the name white as the value in CSS. We can also use the RGB function giving the maximum value for each base color, which is 255, or using the percentages. Then each color must show 100%. In a hexadecimal system, white color will be written as 6F letters, or in its short form, 3F letters. We will talk about the hexadecimal system later, so don't worry about it for now. In this way, we will get the red color or one of the other base colors. The phosphor responsible for a particular color must glow at full power, while the other phosphors do not glow at all. We can write such a color with the name red, green, or blue. We can also use the RGB function where a specific color gets the highest value, which is 255 or 100%, and the rest gets 0 or 0%. In the hexadecimal system, our specific color should receive the highest possible value, which is double F, or in the short form single F, while the other colors receive 0. It is worth mentioning that when specifying colors in the RGB function and the hexadecimal system, we always give values for individual colors in the same order as the name RGB suggests. First red, then green, and finally blue. So here we can see the example for a red color. As the RGB function, it will be 100%, 0% and 0%, or 255, 0 and 0. As the hex number, it would be F, 0 and 0, or in its original form, double F, 00, 00. For the other colors, all you should do is to replace the values. Replace 100% with the 0%, 255 with 0, and F with zeros in a hexadecimal system. So for the green color, the maximum value should be in the middle of our RGB function or our hex number, and for the blue color, the maximum value should be only at the end of our RGB function or our hexadecimal number. Shades of gray can be obtained by adding the same values for each base color in the range from 0 to its full power. The lower the value, the darker gray color. The higher the value, the lighter gray color will be. Now let's discuss the hexadecimal system. What is it about? The hexadecimal system, also known as the hex system, contains 16 numbers, from 0 to 15. In the normal decimal system, we would write them like we did in the first line on this slide. In the hexadecimal system, there is one character for each number, so 2-digit numbers are excluded. Therefore, the numbers from 10 to 15 are replaced by the letters of the alphabet. 10 is an A, 11 is a B, and so on up to 15, which we write as an F. But how do you apply this to color? First of all, each hexadecimal value is preceded by a hash symbol. Then the first two characters refer to the red color value, in the order RGB, red, green, blue. In this example, double A will be converted to 170. I will show how this works in a moment. The next two characters represent the green color value. In our example, 5E will be converted to 94. The last two characters refer to the blue color, and in our case 2C will be converted to 44. So these decimal values could be written in the RGB function for each color, giving the same effect. The values for individual colors also always range from 0 to 255. On the right side of the slide, you can see the end result of such color notation. 3 individual phosphors with such a specific value will make the given pixel glow in the same color as on the slide. Now let's say how the conversion of the values from hexadecimal to decimal is done. Take double A as an example. We know that A is 10, so double A is interpreted as 2 tens. What happens next? The first value, the first A, the first 10, is multiplied by 16. The second value, the second A, the second 10, is then added to this multiplication result. So the final result is 170. And in the RGB function for this color, you could give just that value and you would get the same effect. Now I want to show you a tool that might help you with this. It's a basic Windows calculator. Now what you want to do now, if you see this standard option right here, all you have to do is to click this menu icon. Here you have many varieties of calculators. The usual one is standard, and what we want to do is to choose this one for a programmer. Let's click it. And here we have numeric systems. What we are interested in is this, which is decimal, and this one, which is hexadecimal. We can switch between them, but let's stay in the decimal mode, and let's type, for example, 255. Here you can see the result in our decimal system, and you have instant result in the hex system, which is, as I said before, FF. Now we can switch to hex. Let's do this like this. We can see we have FF right here, which is 255 in decimal system. So let's place here something else. For example, AA. As you can see right here, AA in hex number is exactly 170 in the decimal system. Let's try another thing. Let's type 0A, and you can see it's immediately converted to only A, and it's 10 in our decimal system. And here's why. Our first character, which is 0, is multiplied by 16, which is still 0. And our second character, which is A, which is 10 in decimal system, gets added to this multiplication result, which is 0 in our case. So 0 plus 10 equals 10, exactly as we see this on this example. So you can use Windows Calculator to help yourself with the number conversion. It might be useful, especially at the beginning, if you meet with the hex system for the first time, but you don't need to memorize it or be skilled at converting these values manually. I just want you to know that hexadecimal notation is often used to refer to colors in web development, and it's good to know how it is converted to the decimal system. Here we have some examples of this conversion. So 50 in hexadecimal system will be 80 in the normal decimal system. And here's why. We take the first character, which is 5, and multiply it by 16, and then we add the second character, which is 0. So 5 times 16 plus 0 will be 80. In the second example, we have D6, which would be 414. So we take the first character, which is the D letter, which is 13 in the decimal system. Then we multiply it by 16, and then we add the second character, which is 6. So 13 times 16 plus 6 equals 214. Now let's try to calculate the last example, which would be FF. So we take the first character, which is F, which is the highest value in the hexadecimal system, which, as we know, is 15 in the decimal system, and we multiply it by 16. And then what we have to do is to add the second value, which is also F, which is also 15. So it would be 15 times 16 plus 15. 15 times 16 equals 240 plus 15 equals 255. And here you can see the result, which is exactly what I said before. FF would be 255 because we take the first character, which is F, which is 15, multiply it by 16, and then add the second character, which is also 15. So 15 times 16 equals 240 plus 15 equals 255. If we apply the FF value to each color, in a hexadecimal number we will get 6 Fs, which would be the same as the RGB function with the highest value of 255 for each color. Let's also remember about the short version of the hex system. The hexadecimal notation for colors is 6 characters long, 2 characters for each color. If the value of the specific color consists of 2 identical characters, we can write it with only 1 character, and the second one will be copied from the first one in the conversion process, as you can see on these examples. Remember that in the hex system the letter case doesn't matter, but it's best to adopt one consistent writing method that is convenient for us. Try to write it in lowercase or uppercase without mixing these ways of writing. Now I have 2 quick tasks for you ahead of us. In a moment, I will ask you to pause this video and try to take on the challenge. You can use your head, a piece of paper, or a calculator for this task. For example, let's open our calculator. Let's choose the hex option right here. And let's try to calculate the first value. We have a hex number for a color right here. And our task is to calculate it in a decimal system for our RGB function. These 2 characters in the hex number refers to this first color. These 2 middle characters refers to this middle color in the RGB function. And those last 2 characters refers to the last color in the RGB function. And let's decipher the first one, which is 87 in the hex number. So we choose hex in our calculator, type 87, and we can see it's 135 in the decimal system. So in this case, in our RGB function, the value for the red color would be 135. And you know how it's converted at this point. We take the first character, which is 8, multiply it by 16, then add the second character, which is 7, which would be 135. We can always check it in the calculator. If we choose the decimal system, 8 times 16 plus 7 equals 135. So our second color, which is double C, would be the first C times 16 plus the second C, where we have to decipher the C letter first. And in our third color, which is 2D, would be 2 times 16 plus D. So pause the video now, try to do it yourself, and I'll be back in a moment with the answer. Here's the answer. 87 is 135, double C is 204, and 2D is 45. And that's how we should write this color in the RGB function. Now the second task, this time reversed. We have the color given in the RGB function, and we have to convert it to the hex system. 22, 170, and 100. Let's open our calculator once again. Let's type 22, being in the decimal system, and here we can see it's 16 in the hex system. This time around will be much more difficult if you want to do this manually, but I encourage you to take on the challenge. Now pause the video and I'll be back with the answer in a moment. Our result should be like this. Now I will copy this value and show you what it looks like in the code editor. Now I have my Visual Studio Code open. With this simple document you can see, it's only an index.html file with the one p tag in the body and the style tag in the head, with one CSS rule for our p tag with the color property. Now let's paste the color from our example like this. And the first thing you can see is that our code editor shows us in a simple way what this color actually looks like. We can see it in a small preview window, which is very nice and convenient. But we can also hover on it and we can see the whole window of choosing our color. And we can change it however we want. right here, and choosing from a color palette right here. And we can see the hex number, which refers to this color, is changing immediately up right here and right here in our color property. That's why you don't need to memorize the hex system. I just wanted to show you how it works. As you can see, bottom left corner is always black, and you can see 6 zeros in our hex number. Top left corner is always white, which is 6 F letters. We can choose the color however we want, and it works the same if we use the RGB function. So let's type another color with the RGB function. As you can see, we can use some names, but we can also use numbers like this. And we will get this particular color. Now we can see the RGB function above, and when we change the color, this function changes as well, as you can see right here and right here. We also have this option right here, which is the transparency, and if we move it, we can see that our function changes to RGBA, and it gets the 4th value in the round brackets. Now our color can be somehow transparent. If our transparency is in the top, you can see the RGBA function goes back to normal RGB, because in default it means 1, which is transparency off. If we put our transparency on the bottom level, we will get the RGBA function once again with the transparency set to 0, which means now our element is totally transparent, which makes it invisible. But we can set our transparency however we want. So it can be halfway transparent, for example. What's interesting is that you can add a transparency even to your hex number. Let's try it out. Let's change this color for another one written in the hex number. Like this, for example. You can see we have our hex number above our color window, and in our color property, if we change the color, the hex number changes as well. As you can see, as I said, it has 6 characters, where every 2 characters are responsible for a certain color. 25 is responsible for red, 83 is responsible for green, and 64 is responsible for blue. But if we want to add a transparency, we will get additional 2 characters responsible for our transparency, just like this. And when we change it, we can see it changes as well. So now we got 8 characters in our hex number value. One quick note before the end. Let's change it once again to RGB. Let's type something in it. Let's hover on it, and let's add some transparency to it. And I just wanted to show you that the A letter in the RGBA function, in the RGBA name, refers to the alpha channel, which is responsible for the transparency. We will go to the practice in a moment, and I will also show you some useful tools that you can use in your daily work.